Yes, we're delighted to be joined by one of the training stalwarts in Irish racing, one of the great characters as well, and a hugely successful trainer along a distinguished career thus far, but far from finished. Of course, Pat, thanks for coming in and coming on and having a chat with myself and Fran tonight.
Welcome, lads.
And Pat, it's how did it all begin? Are we right saying 1st of April will be a 40th year with a trainer's licence, upcoming April?
Well, the 1st of April is the first time my first ever runner 40 years ago. Yes, I had one horse at home. But now it started when I left school. Before I went to secondary school, my mother sent us up to this riding school in Clonmel, outside Clonmel, Gorton Fleur there. Mary McCarthy, she had a riding school, and I went up there and I got kind of stuck to it a bit, and I went there for a few summers and I went hunting there for the winter and that, and I was only about 10, 11, 12, 13. Then I went to De La Salle College in Waterford, and I was boarding there, so I stopped the horses then for a while. And then when I came out of college, I broke one at home and used to do a bit of hunting. And then my father used to have a horse in training with Adrian Maxwell over in South Lodge, and we had this yearling at home, 2 yearlings by Daring Display, and so we bought the 2 yearlings, brought them to Goffs, and we sold one. And I think Keith, I think your father bought the one, Kevin. Keith Douglas, what was it? Keith
Stone. Keith Stone, yes.
Keith Stone, yeah. And the one he bought was no good, and the one we couldn't sell I brought home. So I actually broke her myself, and then he sent her over to Adrian Maxwell as a 2-year-old. So anyway, she got sore shins, and the following year as a 3-year-old, I persuaded my father to let me have a go at her myself. So he did, and we travelled the length and breadth of Ireland, running here, running there, finished second last and third last and mid division and all that. But the very first day I ran her was the 1st of April 1981, and I got loaned in my father's car and got the horse box and went into Carrick-on-Suir and met Frank O'Brien, who was a trainer. Frank was going up to Navan the same day, and his son Kevin was riding for me. So he brought the horse up for me, and that's where it started. And she finished midday of that day. Awfully exciting when I could hear her name being mentioned on the thing. It was just so exciting. It was unreal, you know. And that's where it started, really.
And Pat, so it was kind of really by accident that you started training, or was it something growing up, because you're from mostly farming background? Was it something as a child that you wanted to train, although you ended up starting by accident?
I was started by accident, Kevin. I did a nice bit of show jumping and dressage, 3-day eventing a little bit, and hunting and that, but never thought about the training. And really only then when this filly, I just said, look, I'll have a shot at her myself and see how I get on. And I just love horses and love getting them fit, and it just worked out. I ran her around the country, and then the last day, it was her last run. It was her last try. She wasn't running that great. And I remember one day below in Tralee, David Parnell, when he was riding, he was sadly died in an accident after a couple of years after that. But David said, I said, will she win one? And he said she'll win a little small, she'll win around the country someplace. So anyway, I ran her in Clonmel one day, and instead of being up the front and all that, I said, Kevin, just hold her out the back and see how you get on. And a maiden, which I wouldn't do on a month of Sundays now, because she probably was so handicapped, and I didn't realise that time that you don't run a handicapped horse in a maiden. So anyway, she nearly clipped heels and everything, pulling and dragging down the hill, and opening came, and she shot through, and she won by 3 lengths. I couldn't believe it. I walked back to the parade ring. I couldn't even feel my legs in the ground. I just thought there was something wrong with the rest of the horses or something. So that was very exciting. And from that, then we got another horse the year afterwards, and Virginia Deer bought a horse at the sales, and he did very well for us. So that's how it kind of really started.
Racing down past the halfway stage, and Virginia Deer on the near side, Red Rose Bowl on the far side, and the flanks Sputnik and Treasure Trove, Kim Bernick and Earthling. Racing past the 2 furlong marker now, and Virginia Deer is the leader. Virginia Deer from Red Rose Bowl, Treasure Trove, Gormanstown Prince, a closely grouped field at the furlong marker. Virginia Deer, Gormanstown Prince on the near side, then Treasure Trove, Red Rose Bowl and Earthling, and inside the final furlong, Virginia Deer, Gormanstown Prince, Treasure Trove, and as the race towards the finish, Virginia Deer is the leader. In the lead, going to the line, Virginia Deer wins it from Gormanstown Prince.
And he was kind of one of your first really smart horses in your training infancy, because Virginia Deer turned out to be quite a good horse of his generation, didn't he?
Oh, he was like, look, he was a big colt by auction ring, out of a mare by Pall Mall, and look, I just loved him. I didn't know much about horses. I just thought he looked like a big strong horse and that, and so I brought him home and got him broken, and I didn't even break intact to break him at the time, and I broke him with bits and pieces of stuff, but we got him going anyway, and brought him up to Carrigan's and got a Seamus O'Gorman, who was right for Ian Balding afterwards. He rode a few winners on Mailman. Remember that horse that they had in Ian Balding's? But Seamus and Declan, his brother, used to ride out for us. They're living down the road. And Seamus and Declan used to come up and ride him for me in bits of work. And with the first day he ran at Naas, I thought I had a great horse. And he finished second last, and I came home and I was devastated coming home. So I ran him the following. That was on Saturday, and I ran him the following Saturday at the Curragh, and he was second. And then I ran him the following Saturday, and he won. And then about a couple of weeks after, we ran him up in Naas in the Marwell Stakes. I think Burslem and all those one, and a filly belonged to Adrian Maxwell called High Style was running in the race. They paid a lot of money for it, and we won by 4 lengths. And then I said off to Royal Ascot. I don't think it was ever in England before, maybe once or twice, but after Royal Ascot anyway, and in the Windsor Castle Stakes, and because we got Kevin O'Brien was supposed to go and ride it, but he was below in Tramore riding something, and he came in and he was car after carrying overweight, and they suspended him for a week or something, and he missed Ascot, so he couldn't go to Ascot. So we brought Christy Roach rode him for us, and he finished 5th. And then he came back and he won a Group 3 at the Curragh, and then he won another race or two, and then we sold him off over to France. Patrick Bianco trained him anyway, and Daniel Windelstein actually bought him, and he never won after, I think, So he was only probably a few 2-year-old,
And Pat, what was it like going to Ascot? Yeah, as you said, you might have been to England once or twice. This is only relatively infancy of your training career. Now you're in with the big boys in Ascot. All the atmosphere there. What was that like? Was it a bit overwhelming?
Yeah, I was only about 24 or something, and not really overwhelming. We just went and did what we had to do. When when you're young, you wouldn't even think of the ups and downs. You just go and do it, and it was very exciting. And that I remember walking into the ring, and Henry Cecil. I didn't know anybody. Henry Cecil came up and said hello, walking in the ring. And I said, Henry Cecil said hello to me there. So. He obviously was a fella that, he was a friendly kind of fella. So that was exciting that day now. And he ran well, finished 5th. And John Ox won the race, which was a horse called Red Rudy. And I remember that well that day.
And Pat, that's when things really started to take off thereafter. You built up, it's a totally self-contained facility on wonderful land just outside Carrick-on-Suir as well. That's then when you started to get increase in numbers and everything got going from thereafter.
Well, I didn't get going just like that. We got another horse there. We had Virginia Deer, and there was a syndicate out in Australia who had big shares in Auction Ring. They saw his performance and they sent me a filly by Monsignor, who wasn't a great sire, and she won a good few races. And her sister, she was called Madame Fair. And then they sent me a maiden fair, and she won a pile of races, including 2 list races, I think. And then Mons Mark, another brother, he won again. And then they stayed with me for years. Tom Cahill, he was a lawyer from Sydney, and Robert Kyle, a lawyer from London, he used to run the whole thing for them. And that's when they gave us great business there for years, and we had good success with them as well,
And Pat, you then branched out to being kind of a dual-purpose trainer. Obviously, we'll come to Montellada, French ballerina, Aries Gert, due course. But was that by design that you decided to be a dual-purpose trainer? Or was it just you had to deal with the material you were given it?
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. I didn't design to go flat or national hunt. I just whatever I got. If I got a 5 furlong horse, we'd try and win a 5 furlong race. And if I got a 3 mile horse, we'd go and try and win a 3 mile race. But like we didn't set out to, just what we got. That was it, really.
Indeed, Pat, and just starting off training, you're self-taught. How did you develop over the years? Is it just by feel, by touch, find your way?
Yeah, I always like to have the horses well and fresh in themselves, and Virginia Deer now was a great learning thing for me because he was a fairly difficult horse. Now I used to ride him out myself a lot of the time, and he was a handful, but we learned a lot from him now how to get him fit in that, and we just learned away just bits and pieces, and it kept working, and we just learned away by degrees, really.
Pat, the early stages of your career as a trainer, who did you look up to at the time? Who were the trainers that you aspired to be?
Well, your father-in-law, Joe Crowley, was a great man, and I learned a lot from Joe. Joe often brought horses over to my little gallop at the time, and I'd go over to his place, and I would see how he was handling his horses and that. And he was really the main one because there was nobody else around, really, only Joe, and that's the only one I knew, really. And that was my main man, really, Joe.
And of course, Joe, like yourself, was totally self-taught.
He was. Joe. He was a great horseman, and he knew about stock and that. He was a stockman, Joe was, and I felt very comfortable with him because we're farmers and he was a farmer, and so we came cut from the same thought, really, and so I learned a lot from Joe. Joe was a very, very, very good horseman, really,
You often used to tell us you could, from the top of your gallops, if you had a pair of binoculars, you could see over to the hill in Joe Crowley's.
Oh, you could, yeah. You could see across there, no problem, and you can see from us from there as well. You know what I mean? So as a crow flies, it's near enough, but if you go by road, it's still 10 miles, really. And
Pat, when you started training, what was your ambitions? Had you set yourself any target? Because you are a very ambitious fella. Did you ever want to be champion trainer, or was it you wanted to train a Cheltenham winner or Ascot winner? What was your targets when you started off?
Kevin, there was no targets. I had a young family, and I just wanted to get going and make a few bob and train winners. And I didn't know anything about champion trainer and the way. I just knew that you train, go to the racetrack and win a few races. And I didn't really. I wasn't ever in a trainer's yard, so I wasn't, up to speed with all that stuff in champion training and all that. So all we could do was everything we got, try and win with it the best we could, and I can tell you what, Kevin, there's very few horsemen out of here that and improved after us that we couldn't win with. There might be, you can count them on one hand, but that's one thing that we can say over the last 40 years that I think that we trained and that we couldn't win with. Very few of them, if any, did anything afterwards, But if we could win with them, say, like of Flagship Bradleys and all those, they went on, but they were good horses, and we did win with them as well, so it's good.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone will disagree with that. Pat, 40 years later, you're what? Are you 12 winners short of 800 winners? Now, that's some achievement. Some achievement in Ireland, some achievement anywhere, but especially in Ireland.
Yeah, mother, who was a great woman to follow the racing, and my father. But my mother, she passed away there 5 years ago. But she was a great woman she was follow all our horses and that. But she kept all the records. I wouldn't have a clue how many winners I trained only for. She kept a record of all the winners, and now Marie in the office here just got her book and just keeps adding to it. So I was asking her there last week, how many have we? And she said we're 14 short of 800. So hopefully we'll get that this year now, Kevin,
And Pat, when you look down through your big race wins, it's not just on the flat, it's over jumps. It's been an unbelievable record from relatively cheaply bought horses. You never spend big at the sales. You've had a couple of Cheltenham Festival winners. Obviously, Montellado won the bumper, then went back the following year, won the Supreme Novices Hurdle. French Ballerina, She was a brilliant winner on the Graham Bradley in a Supreme Novices hurdle. Aries Girl was second to Muckle Meg in the Cheltenham bumper as well. For relatively small runners at the Cheltenham Festival, you have a fantastic strike rate.
Well, Aries Girl won 4. She ran in 5 bumpers. She won 4, including the champion bumper at Punchestown, and she was second in Cheltenham. And that day in Cheltenham, she was lame before the race, and we weren't going to run her. And she hung like a 20-foot gate the whole race, and still only got beaten 2 lengths. But like I said to anybody coming in, if you give us a Group 3 horse, we'll win a Group 3, and if you give us a Group 1 horse, we'll win a Group 1. But we can't, some of the, when you're buying down low in low prices, it's hard to get the gems, the real top ones. But when we get a real top one, we win the real top races with them,
Coming down below the distance now, Montellado from Tiananmen Square, Mannery and Zany Man, but it's going to be a 1 and 2 for Ireland. Ireland are going to win their second race at the festival in the shape of Montellado up towards the line, and it's Montellado who completes his own hat-trick. It's the second winner for Ireland as he takes the first running of the bumper with Richard Dunwoody from the hot favourite Tiananmen Square.
What was your emotion when Montellado won the bumper under Richard Dunwoody?
My emotion was that I better get a taxi quick because our plane was leaving about an hour and a half later, and we didn't get much sense. It was an evening. It was getting dark. It was getting dark the same evening. We had to catch a plane or catch a taxi to the little Stafford. It is Stafford in April or someplace down beside.
That's right.
And so it was all exciting and all that, but I'd run into Richard then, and then I'd get thing and colours and run out the taxi and straight back to the airport. So I was back to see the replay on television that night at home, really, and it was the last race. I think it was about 6 o'clock in the evening that time the race was.
And coming back into the winners' enclosure, because obviously at the time, I know we're used to now having 12, 14, 16 winners. If we have anything less than 15 winners, we've had a bad Cheltenham. But back in those days, that was the early 90s. We didn't have that many winners at Cheltenham. So to come back into the winners' enclosure, your first winner at Cheltenham, and all the Irish roaring, what did that feel like? Did it take a while to sink in?
Yeah, but look at Kevin, it was relief more than anything as well, and excitement, and is it really happening? You'd be just so excited. It was great, and the win when he won the hurl race, then he was phenomenal that day, and so I'll just tell you a quick story. We were down that morning, cantering down below in the centre of the track in Cheltenham, and we just did a canter around, and the lads were bringing them up to the stables. You could see them going off up along, and that time you had no mobile phones that time or whatever. And next thing I saw Paddy Mullins schooling Borough 8, and he was running in the same race the same day. I said,
favourite.
Yeah, he was. I said, Paddy, what are you doing with the? Oh, I'm just getting his eye in. I said, oh Jesus, I never got Michael's eye in. I was actually sick with worry. I said, this fella will fall the first hurl. I look right, Egypt. But anyway, if I had a mobile phone, I would have got lads to come back. Thank God I hadn't a mobile phone, because they would have been brought back and jumped over hurls. But he offered them and gave an exhibition. But the reporters asked Paddy Mullins, Paddy, what do you think of Borough 8 today? Are you happy with his jumping? And you know what Paddy said? I'm very happy with his jumping. It's in between the jumps I'm worried about. So it was some statement. But anyway, we won, and like he was just unreal that day. He was like and Richard Dunwoody was supposed to ride him, but he was claimed by Martin Pipe, and he was like a dog because he fell at the second last, and he jumped up and he said to somebody there, who won? And they said Montellado by a street. And he said, Jesus, hit the stick. But that was the time, So it was great times, really,
At the second last, Borough 8 from Montellado, the Irish big two now. And Montellado moves up to join Borough 8 now. Borough 8 on the near side. Dreamer's Delight was the faller at that one, and Montellado was taking it up. It's Montellado now racing towards the final flight from Borough 8 in second. Then comes Lemonville, then Satin Lover. Montelado jumps it clear. Montelado 4 lengths clear of Borough 8 and Leavensville, and Southern Lover under extreme pressure as they rate up towards the line. This is going to be a first blood for the Irish. Montelado is going to win this in tremendous style for Ollie Hannon and Pat Flynn. And at the line, Montelado wins it.
He was a very good horse, and with an ordinary pedigree now, he wouldn't have had the pedigree that some of the good horses had. He was just as gifted horse.
He was obviously very fragile. He only ever had 12 runs in his career. He won 8 times. He came back from injury. Owen Norris, who's still with you now, back I think in 1993, he won an amateur race on the flat in Listowel. He must have been very difficult. He was obviously very talented, but very difficult to train.
No, he wasn't difficult to train. He was a very big horse, and I didn't train I didn't weigh the horse at that time. But I would say he was a 600 kilo horse. You know, one day above, and he wouldn't go on. He wasn't very effective on soft ground. You know, he had to have good ground, and he was really, really good. But one day at Limerick, he won at Limerick, but a horse fell in front of him in the hurdle and nearly knocked us, and that's what damaged his leg. From that day onwards, he had a problem in his suspensory ligament behind his knee, and that's one of the worst injuries, really. And we left him off and got him back and won a few, and then it came against him again. But just a ligament. Suspensory ligament, that's what happened to him, you know.
As they race inside the final furlong, Montelado from If You Say Yes putting in a big run the outside and a strong challenge, but Montelado is battling on nicely under a tender ride as they go towards the finish. It's Montelado and Michael Canaan win the Cesarewitch by just over a length from If You Say Yes.
And obviously Montelado's career was cut short. It was curtailed by injury, and that's what finished him, wasn't it? Was it the suspensory again that finished him?
No, the suspensory the whole time. Like, I mean, you know yourself. We I don't know much about suspensions because we don't get that many of them. We've had 2 or 3 in 40 years, but I know bloody well that when you get suspensory injury, it's worse than a tendon injury. Like, you know, they're very behind the knee there. It's a very, very bad place to get an injury, really, and it needn't be a big injury. Just if there's a bit of tearing there. You know, they very rarely stay in training after much for a length of time.
But it's French Ballerina now, who's kicked away clear under Seamus Heffernan. It's a battle for the placings behind the leader, Demantia, Buddy Marvel and Chris Green and Sadler's Home. But it's all French Ballerina who's 6 clear as they power up towards the line. French Ballerina wins it in impressive style by about 8 lengths at the line. French Ballerina, Seamus Heffernan wins it. And French Ballerina, last year's winner, goes up to join Joe Leah with Gordy on the outside. But it's French Ballerina with the lead as they race inside the last 150 yards. French Ballerina from Gordy as they go towards the line. French Ballerina lasts it out to win for Seamus. And at the final flight, French Ballerina going to rise 6 in front. Safely over, went through the top, but is clear by over 6 lengths. Johnny Brush aside a slight mistake, ensures second for Slaney Native, but French Ballerina has made virtually all and draws away to win readily by over 8 lengths for Graham Bradley.
And Pat, moving on to French Ballerina, which was a brilliant winner of the Supreme Novices Hurdle. She also won the Savile Beg Stakes and the Flat. She was a very, very talented filly.
French Ballerina had a fabulous pedigree, and I was very lucky to get her to train. She was a fabulous filly. She was unreal. She would have won that day in Royal Ascot. I have no doubt whatsoever about it. Seamus Heffernan said she felt like a hovercraft going to the start and just jumped out of the stalls and she broke her leg.
Pat, I remember meeting you the morning of the Supreme Novice Hurl outside the stable yard in Cheltenham. It was my first ever ride in Cheltenham. I rode the part-times on the same day, and the pressure was on. You're riding an Irish banker. She's obviously a high-class mare going there. Graham Bradley rides her, but a lot was expected on the day. And I remember just, God, the pressure at Cheltenham, what you're under, the relief, the whole lot. It was a very straightforward race to watch, but big occasion for you.
Oh, I tell you, no, that day coming into the ring, coming into the parade ring that day, no, that was serious. That was, I've never, that was the biggest of all. When she won, and I knew she was good enough to win. I knew we had her really good. But don't forget, there was 30 runners in the race, and she was the only filly of 30 runners. So there had to be luck and running as well. And in Cheltenham, you can't kick a hurl out of the way in Cheltenham. If you hit it, you're gone over and that's it. So she had to be foot perfect. So we loaded the schooling done with her, and we got her enjoying her jumping. And so she jumped around and she flipped around and she absolutely won on the bridle. Graham Bradley said afterwards, he said it was frightening the speed he was coming down the hill. He just couldn't believe how much he had in his hands. She just swept clear and just ran away with it. You know, she was unreal. That was one of the biggest thrills of my life, actually. I loved that filly. She was absolutely unreal.
Looking for his song, the blue jacket, red sleeves, travelling well. Una Star making a great run the outside. Gap Flax coming through on the inner in pink, arriving at the second from home. And it's a French Ballerina that's got it. French Ballerina in the lead to his song, who flattened the flight of hurdles. Coming wide the outside is Una Star. Listen to the Irish roar. It's French Ballerina kicking on clear by 2 to his song in second place. In third is Una Star. That's an Irish 1-2, staying on in the pink. The best English hope is Gap Flax. They're at the final flight now, and French Ballerina has landed well. Strains of Montelado here as he come up toward the line in the Citroën Supreme Novices hurdle, because this goes to French Ballerina. Graham Bradley booting her home clear by 6 to 8 lengths. His song a banker in second place. Back in third is Gap Flax, but it's French Ballerina to his song.
It just confirms my belief in the filly. I always thought she was brilliant, and just hoping she wouldn't make a mistake today. And Brad said, like, it's frightening how good she was, how well she was coming down the hill. She was really well.
There was one moment's worry when she took a dive at the last. That was the only.
Oh Jesus, Fran! I tell you, Fran, I swear to God, if you put a matchstick on the flat over the hurdle, she'd have knocked it off it. Every time I see that hurdle, oh geez, she reached at it, didn't she?
Yeah. I looked for replay this morning just to remind myself. Yeah.
And then if she fell there, they'd say, she wouldn't have won anyway. You know what I mean? They'd be saying, you know, so. that was no, and she was a brilliant job. She was so well of herself. She took a long one at it and got away with it, you know.
Full of running.
The final flight, his song Anthony McCoy, and on the inside French Ballerina, and it's his song on the near side from French Ballerina, who's battling back on the inside. They got 50 yards to go. French Ballerina and his song just getting the nod. His song wins a thriller.
She beat his song 7 lengths. Then her next run was back at the Punchestown. Was it the champion novice hurdle, and his song turned it around, beat her by a half a length. Obviously that wasn't her true running that day. Was she a little bit flat maybe, Pat, after?
Not a bit flat. She was in the best form of all. She was the same form, but the ground was bottomless, and she was just look. She was a gold medalist on good ground, and she was an ordinary bronze medal on soft ground, and the same with Montelado. They were just two different horses. That day above in Punchestown, it was just very, very soft ground, and I knew she just didn't like it. You know, she just wasn't able to be as effective. She needed good ground. That was it, you know, and that's what she had at Ascot today. She got killed, but like in Punchestown, we were always going to struggle on that ground, you know, because even I ran her in Navan and soft ground before she won the hurl, and she wouldn't. Graham Bradley came over to ride her in Navan, and she won, but he said doesn't like soft ground, which we knew, you know.
She'd also run an Irish Oak. She finished 5th to Dance Design the year she won the Irish Oaks, didn't she?
She did, and but look, it's like anything. You have to have the ground for horses. A good horse will run a good race in any kind of ground. But I mean, if you look back on the horses, the top horses, if you put them on to certain kind of grounds, they wouldn't be the same horses, you know.
And Pat, when did you hatch the plan to run in the Ascot Gold Cup? When did you decide to target that race?
I can't remember now. Really, you know, I just mentioned it there to Paul Shanahan and John Magner, and they said to be a good idea. So we said we went over, and we were there. I actually remember saddling her. John and Sue Magner were there with me, and they said she looked magnificent. She was absolutely. If you could comb your hair, you could look at her skin, and you'd see yourself in her skin. She was so well. Geez, that was that day. I was so devastated, and I had to keep smiling. You know what I mean? I was devastated, but I had to say, you know, that's just life, you know. But I was broke up inside that day. I was really broken up, and I felt so sorry because we really loved that filly. She was an absolute beauty she was, you know. But and it was very sad for the owners as well. John Magner came down with me. He ran down to the start. He came out the gate, and the two of us ran down to the start, because the start of the Gold Cup is down to the right, about 2 furlongs down. You know, when you go out the gate?
Yeah.
You know where the start is, down below on your right, down to the chute.
Yes, yeah, down to 4 furlong marker, yeah.
He came down with me. And so when we got there, they had her loaded on the horse box and the tractor there and a horse box. And the two of us got into the horse box. And they brought us up to the gate, and I knew the girl that was looking after her was crying, and I knew when I saw her crying, she knew she was a good horse girl, and she I knew the story was over, because she wouldn't be crying for no reason. And so I could see her kind of leaning down, kind of collapsing on her hip, just kind of collapsing on one side. So John Magner went out, and he went into the crowd, into his people inside, and I went off down to the stable yard with the filly. And when we took her out, she was kind of collapsing. She couldn't put the leg under her. She had broken it inside, and she just severed it naturally and just passed away there, you know.
And obviously she was a very, very valuable mare as well, pedigree wise. She was by saddle as well, so Phil Hard Dross.
She was, yeah. Oh, she was good. She was good.
And that must have been very hard to get over, Pat. I know everybody, and that's why we're all in it. I know these things happen, but we all get into it for the love of horses. When it happens to an ordinary horse, it's very hard to take. When it happens to a very good one, it's even harder to take. But you and all the team back in the yard, it must have been quite demoralising for a while.
That was, but Kevin, when things that way happened to me, I'd be devastated for half an hour, and then I'd pick up very quick. I wouldn't go around moping about it. Just that was really sad for everybody. But I would be on the floor for a half an hour, really, like, you know, and then just come out of it and you just deal with everything around you, and get it all sorted and move on again if you could, you know.
2 furlongs to go, and Aries Girl on the outside is the leader, followed in second place by Domini, then Hotel Manila. Staying on behind these is Gambling Doc and Chef Comedienne, but it's Aries Girl who's gone 4 in front of Domini and Chef Comedienne staying on the outside. And as they run inside the last 200 yards, it's Aries Girl out 5 in front. Chef Comedienne has gone a clear second, but up towards the finish, Aries Girl out in front. Second is Chef Comedienne. The judge for third between Gambling Doc.
Pat, Aries Girl, she was another very good mare as well. She won what? Did she win 4 bumpers? And she just got beat by Muckle Meg as well, didn't she? We touched on her briefly.
Yeah, she won 4 bumpers, ridden by Owen Norris, and then she was second at Cheltenham, and you know, she was lame before the race really, and we weren't going to run her, but we decided then we would run her, and she hung during the race, and she was still only beaten 2 lengths, and they drew clear of the field. And actually, Muckle Megs didn't, after beating her, didn't come into the. I'd say she's the only winner never come into the parade ring, and she actually collapsed coming in the chute. Muckle Megs. That's the fight we put up to her, and but she was a very good mare as well, yeah.
Pat, Flagship Uberales, you had him for the early part of his career. I think you won. He ran maybe 4 times for you, maybe 5, and you won twice with him, I think.
Yeah, we were his 5th trainer, believe it or not, and I think he ended up having 9 trainers in the finish. But we actually won 2 with him, and we were 3rd in the champion 4-year-old hurl race, beating the neck and the neck above and Punchdown with him. He ended up, you know, we knew he was a serious machine of a horse, you know. So he was a very good horse. He was one of the good ones we had. He was, yeah.
At the last, Flagship Uberales over safely from Andy's Lad in second, chasing the leader, but in vain at this stage. Flagship Uberales pushed out, clear of Andy's Lad. A battle on for 3rd position, but Flagship Uberales wins it well.
And Pat, obviously, who had him before you ended up with him? Because you had him, there was obviously, the owners are quite tricky, I think, the early part of his career, to say the least.
Well, you know yourself, but I know I was, no, I think Joe Crowley had him first. I think Victor Bones, Dermot Weld, Joe Crowley, Victor Bones, Dermot Weld, Victor Bones again, and then me. And then he went to either he
No
went to
No
no chance. Yeah, Paul Nichols, I think. Then he went to your man Philip Hobbs, and ended up being owned by JP McManus, the great JP. I was saying, if it's a pity JP didn't own him from day one, we'd have had him and we'd have won everything with him as well, you know. So look, that's just life. That's it. Look, we were delighted to have him when we had him, and he was a very good horse. I knew that he was a good horse because we had French Ballerina at the time, and we used to do bits of work, and he put it up to her, you know. I said, this horse now, he was by accordion, of course, and you know, he was another good horse there, Ivana's Pace. He won 4 for a sort of 9 runs. He won his last 2 runs with us, and he was by accordion as well. And we had some good horses, Kevin, I'll tell you that. But we'll have them again.
Cheviot Amble staying on the near side. Hushang from Cheviot Amble right on the stand rails and racing inside the last 200 yards. Cheviot Amble on the near side. Heads Hushang, Wandering Thoughts is third, and running up to the finish, it's a treble for John Egan. Cheviot Amble wins.
Yeah, Cheviot Amble, she was by Penna and Walk, and she was very, very good finish. She went up the Curragh a pile of times. Galliana, she won nice few races for us as well. She was by Galileo, and you know, there was some other, what other ones did I say to you there?
Wild Jester, didn't he win the last race at Phoenix Park?
Race inside the final furlong, and on the far side, Wild Jester from Hearn, clean cut over on the stand rail, head above in the centre of the track. Smuggy Lad is coming late on the far side. It's Wild Jester as they race up towards the line. Wild Jester on the far side. Wild Jester is home. So Christy Roach has won the last race of the Phoenix Park's history with number 9, Wild Jester, trained by Pat Flynn down in County Waterford.
Yeah, Wild Jester, my father bred him, and he was actually a half-brother to the first winner I ever had, Cheap Display. She was by Daring Display, but Wild Jester was by Jester, and he won a good few races at the Phoenix Park. He won a good few 5 furlong sprints. He was a big horse now. This fellow was about 600 kilo, big, huge horse. I remember the first day I ran him above a Navan. Every time I meet Padge Gill, I said, do you remember the day above a Navan you could only barely fit into the stalls? They had to push him in and squeeze him into the stalls. He was so huge. And Padge Gill rode him the first day, and so he was a good horse, and very incorrect in front now. He was turning every way in front, but still he was able to move, you know.
And of course, as we said, you were you trained the last ever winner of the last ever race at the Phoenix Park.
Yeah, Wild Jester was the last winner ever to win a race at the Phoenix Park, and that's been asked in quizzes here and there, and so that was a little bit of a thing. And I remember the park very well. The park was a lovely racetrack, really. I don't know why they closed it, really, but that's it.
She's our mark. You won multiple races with her. She was another good servant. She was. I remember the day I bought her above in Prairie House, and I came home and I said to my wife, I brought one of the best fillies, one of the nicest fillies I've ever bought in my life, and this one's going to be a real good filly. And she turned out to be really good. She just had something. She had some presence about her. She was unreal. She was very, very good, and without being like she was beaten. We got her beaten. We were second beaten in a short head in a Group 2 one day, the Curragh. And she was third in a Group 2 in her last run for us over in Newmarket. And then the Migler stud bought her, and they're breeding from her. And you know, she was just a very good filly, you know.
They're off. And as they break away, Nevis in the centre with Dawn Approach and Littermore on the outside of AR. These are being followed by Flying the Flag, who's quickly now moved up on the outside and takes over the lead. So Flying the Flag moves on in front. Littermore is second. Dawn Approach on the outside of probably an AR. In between them is Nevis, and Designs on Rome is the back marker.
And Pat, one of probably the best horses you ever trained was one of your relatively recent horses, was Designs on Rome, who turned out to be a multiple Grade 1 winner in Hong Kong.
No, there's another story. I was above in Goffs, and like I was at the Goffs RB, and of course like 50,000, 60,000, 80,000, 100,000, all this. So, like I said, geez, what am I going to do here? So it was next thing I saw the Migler horse over, and I said I'd go over and have a look. And I asked Fiona there, Fiona Craig, could I see a horse there by, I forget now what it was by, and I said I probably won't be able to afford it. But she said we had a horse there a minute ago come out unsold. I said, what's that? A colt by Holy Roman. We thought we'd get 100 grand for him, you know. So I said, could I have a look at him? And so he came out, and I swear to God, Kevin, the hair stood in the back of my neck. I said, this is unreal. I said, how the hell? And so I made Fiona an offer, and she asked the boss woman, she rang her, and Eva Busher, and she said, sell him to Pat. And so I went in, and my hands were shaking, signing the thing. And I came out and I rang the wife, Catherine, straight away. And I said, I'm after buying, I cannot believe I got this horse. This is the best horse. This is going to be, he's unreal, I'm telling you. And told the lads when I came home, Danny, I said, lads, I'm after buying a machine. I can't even, I'm shaking after buying him. So we knew straight away he was a good horse, you know. And you know, so he came on, then we broke him and got him going. And turned out to be, he just wasn't a 2-year-old, but we won at 2 and we were second in the Group 1. But he really wasn't a 2-year-old, but he was so talented that he did win at 2. You know what I mean? So when we sold him to Hong Kong, then he told John Moore that this will be one of the best horses that ever came into Hong Kong. So I'd say he was kind of scratching his head, thinking this fella doesn't know. But anyway, he turned out to be serious. And then one year there, he was running in the Hong Kong Derby, and Mark, my son, and myself went out to Hong Kong to see the race, and he won the Derby when we were there. We had a fabulous time out there. It was great. So it was a pleasure to have. Like, look, bred by the Mile stud. What else do you expect? They're top stuff, and so it was good for them as well that he came on and improved their mare and the whole lot, and good for everybody, really, you know.
And Pat, obviously, he was second to Designs and Rome in that national stakes prior to going to Hong Kong. You showed a lot of faith in him to run him in that Group 1 because he was beat in the nursery in Tipperary prior to that off a mark of 89. You know, it was a big leap going in there off being beaten in a handicap into Group 1 company.
Yeah, we were given half stone away to the lad that won the race, but then again, what that day was the ground. It was just bottomless ground, as it was in the Curragh as well. But he got very upset below in the yard in Tipperary and got very coltish and all that, and got very upset at the start, and you know, a bit coltish and that, and then he said he wouldn't go past the horse in front. He was looking in behind him instead of going past him. So, well, now in fairness, now I thought my bubble had burst that day, really, you know, because I said, Jesus. So anyway, we had to go back to the drawing board, and I said, you know, we own him ourselves. I'd probably well run him in the Group 1 because, like, you know, if I had a partner in him, you'd be saying, no point run him. So I had no one to answer to, only ourselves. So I said, we'll run him, yeah. And Danny said to me, if he had another furlong, he would have won that race, and I know he would have. He was cutting into the thing unreal after. He was really eating up the ground, and the same way in over in Hong Kong, he was out last the whole way, and he come like a rocket at the finish, but he hadn't it was only 7 furlongs at the Curragh, and he just had, if he had another furlong, he would have beaten Don Approach, you would have, yeah.
But they're racing now towards the final furlong and flying the flag over on the far side. Dawn Approach now making ground rapidly in the centre of the track, and it is now Dawn Approach and Kevin Manning who come through the lead from Littermore. Designs and Rome is running on the near side, but it's going to be 5 out of 5 for Dawn Approach, running for the first time in the Godolphin Blue. Wins from Designs and Rome.
How has the game changed? 40 years, like Irish racing, it's developed, you've all-weather racing, Dundalk now.
Look, it's like this. If you have a nice horse, you'll win races, and but you have to have a nice horse. And, you know, we have nice horses, but we wouldn't have the top horses. And well, we have a few nice ones coming on now. Hopefully they'll be nice, but, you know, and hopefully someone send us a few nice horses and stuff. But like I said, when we get a nice horse, we'll win whatever they're labelled to win. That's it. But I don't see any big... Look, I mean, Kevin, I'm always saying, or Fran, I'm always saying that everyone says it's harder to win now. It isn't harder to win, I think, because if it's harder to win, how come there's no track records being broken? Like, I mean, like why is it harder to win a mile race in the Curragh when the track records have been rarely broken? You might hear one every so often by a little a split second taken off it. But if you go back along 40 years ago and get the times in the Curragh, there's not much difference really. And it's all about now having the good horse. If you have a good horse, you'll win your race. And if you haven't a good horse, you won't win your race. Simple as that. And that's the big boys are able to go out and spend the big money on the good horse that will do those times, and they'll win the races. But if it was such a big deal, and if it's so harder now, there would be 4 and 5 and 6 seconds taken off the races, which there's no way that's happening really,
Indeed, and Pat, just over the years, all these things have changed. Prize money's got better and that, but through them early years, you must have had to not bet to survive, but owners would love to line up a horse for a touch. You must have pulled off one or two that really sticks in your mind along the way.
We had a few good ones there. Kate Emily was one. What comes to mind. Frank McNulty had her with us, and she was as slow as a snail. I said, Frank, bring her home, and he said, I would try her again. And next thing was, as a 4-year-old, she came out and she started to walk really well. I said, geez, Frank said to me, they're a late developing family. So I said, grand. So we were above one day in Tipperary, and Danny came in and he said, I could have won. We rode her wrong. You see, we rode her. We rode her wrong. He said, if I rode her this way, I would have won. I said, Danny, bail down to no more. Just saying nothing to anybody. So anyway, we went down to the stall, and I said to Frank, get all your money back now that you're in train. This one should win. And so he went around backing her. I wouldn't be a big betting man, but he was having his bets at 20 to 1 or 15 to 1 or 14 to 1, all that. And the more he was backing her, the more they were putting her out. She was such a bad record. But she won 9 or 10 after for us, so she was that was one of the good ones now. But I'll tell you a good story. Lester Pickett, there was a crowd from Ireland had a horse in training over Newmarket and Syndicate, and they wanted Lester Pickett to ride the horse because he was riding a lot of winners at the time. And so the trainer got Lester Pickett to ride the horse. And the boys went over and they had all sorts of money on the horse. So next thing anyway was the horse came in around 6th or 7th. So the lads came in very cross. And one of them said to Lester, why the F in hell didn't you go for the gap 2 furlongs out? And Lester turned around and he said, the gap was going too fast. So that's what happened there. So it's hard enough to win these races. Like, it's great, everything is great when they come off, but the day you'll be trying to win, there'll be some other fella trying to win as well. And it isn't just, some people think you can just turn on and off a switch. Is he going to win? All this, like, but it's not that simple really. But we've been very lucky with horses now that's had bets on. So hopefully we can do it again,
Baby Blue Eyes has made ground towards the inside. Now they straighten up for the judge, and You're Beautiful is the leader from crossing Baby Blue Eyes. Then Bondaway, Tomorrow Can't Go With Them, and Baby Blue Eyes now has set sail for home, has gone clear of crossing, staying on the inside Magic Carpet and Bondaway the outside. But as they race inside the last 200, Baby Blue Eyes is way out clear. It's going to be a big day for Denny Grant and Pat Flynn. Baby Blue Eyes on its own wins by 5.
And Pat, it's always, you have a great record when you see money coming for some of your horses. Rarely do you leave it behind. And you're a great man to get horses to progress up along the ratings. And, there's been numerous horses that started off lowly rated and ended up being actually listed performers and winning premier handicaps.
Yeah, we've had a good few of those, and we started down. That starters, they were just weak when they were young, and they actually handicapped themselves really. And we had Baby Blue Eyes. I think she went down to about 47 or something, and she ended up 108. And there was a few of them that way that come up along. If you run them when they're young and they're a bit weak, they'll end up getting a nice mark. And you hopefully then if they improve, they'll be able to win along up the way.
Pat, you've trained a lot of good horses. You've had a lot of top-class jockeys riding for you down through the years. Obviously, of course, our own Fran Berry being the number one, obviously. But you've had Lester Piggott, Steve Cawthon, Pat Edery, Mick Kinnan, Johnny Murta, Richard Dunwoody, Charlie Swans, Graham Bradley's. You've had them all. Joseph O'Brien rode a lot of winners for his apprentice as well. Pat Smullen rode a lot of winners.
He did. They all rode. A lot of jockeys have ridden for us over the years. Like, you know what I mean? Richard Dunwoody and most of the jockeys really, and a lot of the apprentices on the way up. We'd often farm their claim. You know, we picked good apprentices on the way up. John Egan rode a lot of winners early on for us. Kieran Fallon rode a horse once. He was beating the neck in an apprentice race above in Limerick, and that was okay anyway. About when Kieran was flying, and so I had a runner at the Curragh one day, and about 15 years later, and Kieran rode him for us, and he said to me, I'm still sick over that horse. I'm still sick over that race above in Limerick. That's a fact. I swear to God, he said to me. It's an apprentice race, and he was still bothering. They got beaten, and all the winners he had. But that'll just tell you how competitive he was, really. You know.
Steve Cawthon, he rode for you as well.
He did.
One of the greats.
Steve Cawthon. Yeah, he did. He rode Wild Jester actually in the big sprint over in Doncaster. But whatever side, I think it was at the lower numbers. Whatever side we were drawn anyway. No horse in the first 10 out from the rail had won that race ever, and we were drawn 3 off the rail. So he was finished third, and he said to me after, he said, "How far would I have won?" He said, "If I was drawn right." Just unfortunate, you know. And the same day at the Curragh, we were second. With a full brother to Rainbow Quest. He was a cast-off we bought the sales in Newmarket. He was second in the listed race, ridden by Lester Pickett. So that was a day now that we could have had, you know, it's still nice to be second in the listed race and to be third the big one, but it'd be lovely if we won him as well. But that was it.
Was he good to ride for, Fran?
Pat was very good. He knew his horse well. Pat, Lester Piggott, he's a bit of an enigma to everybody. We still talk about him. He's retired 30 years. What was he like for you as a trainer to deal with?
He only rode for us about 4 times or something, but you don't give him instructions because he just do his own thing anyway. So I think someone said you don't say you hold this horse up or that to him. You just give him ride the horse and he take the feel of him, and he'd work it out during the race, and he usually works it out fairly well. There are a lot of funny stories about Leicester. One years ago, I think, when jockeys rode a group race or a group winner or a stakes winner, they had to give the lad leading up the horse a guinea, and so Leicester anyway rode a group race winner, and this young lad said to Leicester, "You owe me a guinea," into his right ear, and Leicester made no comment. So your man said, "That must be the deaf ear," because. So he went round to the other ear and he said, "You owe me 2 guineas." And Lester said, "Go back to the other one, it was cheaper."
Pat, you know your horse very well, and you're saying you use a lot of claim riders. Did you ever use a top amateur who's obviously put on a bit of weight since then, but Kevin Ryan, I think, rode a winner for you maybe along the way?
Oh yeah, Mr. Mustapha, Kevin rode that below in Tralee, I think it was. And actually, I was out in Spain at that time. I watched the race in Spain in a hotel. But in fairness, now the horse, my grandmother now would have won the horse the same day. In fairness, but he was a kind of an arm. Kevin, we had sidebars in the horse to make Kevin wouldn't fall off. But he won easy in the finish, Kevin, didn't he?
He did. He bolted up. I thought I gave him a great ride, Fran, and that was the last ride I ever had for Pat Flynn, because I'd ridden out my claim. I rode it because it was owned by Michael Smurfett, wasn't it, Dr. Michael Smurfett?
It was, yes.
Yeah, they wanted me to ride it because obviously the well connection, and of course I won and thought, lovely. I get a few more rides off Pat, but because I hadn't got the claim, that was it. Ditched, thrown into the mucky.
That's his excuse, Pat. That's his excuse. He don't claim. Yeah. You didn't see enough in him, did you?
No, look, it's like this, lads. No, that was a very good ride, Kevin. Not fairness, all joking aside. But like, I wouldn't have had that many from then on. I don't think I had that awful lot of bumper horses. We've had great luck with bumper horses over the years. Really good luck with them. Like I said, if they're good enough, we'll win with them, and if they're not good enough, nobody will win with them. We can't win with them. Simple as that, you know. And
And all joking aside, not stopping you, Pat, but it was actually, and I know you since I was a kid, like Fran, but I got a great kick out of riding a winner for you because, you know, you're a well-known trainer. You've had huge success down over your career, and it was actually a joy to ride a winner for you. You know, that's a great trainer that I'm after riding a winner for. I genuinely got a good kick that day.
Great, Kevin. And
you can send me on. You can send me on that few quid there next day or tomorrow. You know?
Actually, that day, Michael Gaisley, who worked with us for about 30 years, Michael Gaisley was a year ahead of me in national school, and he was with us there. He was on the groundwork on the yard. He was a great man. He lit up the winner that way. Mickey was awfully excited as well.
Popeye.
So, no, it wasn't Popeye. No, Mickey Gaisley lit up the horse that day. Michael Gaisley. He worked with us for about over 30 years, and he retired there a few years ago, you know.
And a lot of your staff have been with you for a long length of time. You know, we went on about Owen Norris winning on Montelado and those horses back in the early 90s. He's still with you. Viewers see him at Dundalk every week. Danny Grant is your stable jockey. Obviously, Mickey Gaisley. Popeye. What was Popeye's real name? He was with you for years.
Popeye was James O'Mahony from Portlaw. And Popeye he's out of the horse game for a good few years now. But a lot of local people work for us over the years there. And then Marie, Danny's with us for ages. Marie in her office. Marie is Padre Macho's the ex-jockey and ex-trainer's daughter. And she's married in Carrick-on-Shore. And she's with us 29 years because how I know that, because our two youngest they're identical twin boys. They are 29 and they were only about 3 or 4 months old when Marie arrived along, and she's with us ever since. And she's Peter Matthews' sister, who's the secondary steward and that at the races.
And of course, she's aunt to Robbie Dolan, who's absolutely flying on the flat in Australia, twice champion apprentice over there.
Yeah. Marie's sister is his mother, and Bobby is his father, and he's flying. I saw that something that he's doing very well over there. Yeah.
Pat, you love travelling. Yourself and Catherine, you've done a lot of travelling.
Well, I wouldn't say we do a lot. We might go once a year someplace, Kevin. You know, we go to the Canaries, out to Tenerife, as you know. Excuse me, and. I've recommended the place to yourself and Pat Mullen to go there, and you enjoyed it. But we go to mostly over to Playa de las Americas, and we go to this bar over there called the Galway Girl, and it's a great racing bar. I've sold a few horses in it, would you believe? And so we go there, and Joe McMahon is from Cork. He owns the bar, and Mag's his partner. She's from Glenavady, County Galway. And hopefully I'll be there soon again now to meet them. And the big horsey bar, you can watch the races there, you can have a little bet. And I sold a horse, sharing a horse to a man there. We have a very nice horse here by Milan. He's a full brother to Beat That, and he's a half brother to Might Bite. So I sold a sharing him out to a man out there, Gavin O'Mahony out there. He's living in London, but I meet him in a bar out there in Tenerife. But it's a good place. I remember yourself and Pat ringing me from the Mamarosa restaurant. We recommended that to you, and you went in there and rang me from it that night. You're having a great feed in there.
I remember the first night we went over to Tenerife, myself and Pat. Francis and Angela obviously booked the hotel, and it was a bit of a dump, to say the least. So we arrived in at 9 o'clock at night anyway. So Angela and Francis says, we'll ring Emer Han and the travel agent the next morning. So myself and Pat were sent down to the bar to obviously calm us down. Fran, you know what it was like. You came on holidays with the Fortaventura before. And myself and Pat got this brainwave. I'll tell you what, we don't need the travel agent. We'll ring Pat Flynn. I says, Pat, where are we going to stay in Tenerife? This place is a Cape. He said, I can't think of the name of the hotel. He says, the place with the statues. He said, if you go walk, you won't be able to, you won't miss it. The big statues outside us. So what's the name of it? So you had to wait till your wife Catherine came home. The Mediterranean Palace is what it was. And sure enough, we spent, I think, the next 4 or 5 years going to the same hotel.
Yes, it's lovely there. And around that area, we stayed the whole time there, Kevin. It's very nice, you know. It's a great old crack, really, you know.
Pat, you've gone to San Francisco a couple of times as well. We've often got pictures of you and videos of you in Alcatraz, because obviously one of your daughters Not that she lives in Alcatraz, she lives in San Francisco.
Yes, she's married out there, and so we go there. Well, we've been only there 2 or 3 times, but every time I go. Catherine only went there once, but I like going back in there twice in Alcatraz now. I just like going in there and just imagining what was going on there years ago and stuff. And so it's good stuff, really, you know.
You're a sportsman. You love your hurling, football, Waterford. We'll get to that in a minute. But one of your big passions in life is boxing. Muhammad Ali. You're from a long time as a kid, but you finally got to meet the man later in life.
Yeah, I remember when I was going to school years ago. My father, we had a man working at home. We always had a few lads working in the yard at home. And Paddy Coughlin used to bring the man called Paddy Coughlin, grand man from the village. He used to bring the milk to the creamery with a tractor and trailer, and he'd pick up a neighbour's milk on the way, and we'd sit up in the trailer in a bag of straw heading off to off the school. And this morning anyway, he stopped above, and Jimmy Terry was the man. They're all gone now, but Jimmy said to Paddy, "Will Clay beat Liston tonight?" And so that was exciting. That night I listened to the fight with my father, and Cassius Clay, who became Muhammad Ali, beat Sonny Liston. And I don't know whether it was the second or first. He beat him twice, but was that the first, second fight? I'm not sure. But that was awful exciting. And I fight big fights. My father always put them on the radio, and I'd go down listening to them and be all excited listening to these fights. But you know, that's what got my interest going in it, really.
You were a good boxer, weren't you? Yourself?
No, I boxed, but I wasn't a great boxer. We weren't really trained. We were just going in, you win, all right, just punch away there. But I boxed in the stadium in Dublin and stuff, in different places that way. And you know, I gave everything up. The night before, I was married at 23, right? And I was boxing about 7 nights or 6, 7 nights before the wedding. I was boxing an Irish champion, and I said, you know, the only thing was bothering me was I never got a black eye, but I said, gee, I better not get a black eye, you know, because the wedding is coming up and stuff. So I was so careful. Your man came across the big right cross and landed me right there, and I said, this is not going to be good now in the morning. So anyway, next morning, there's a big shiner on my eye. So by the time the wedding came, it was kind of gone back a good bit. So for the first time ever, we had to put makeup on my eye, and first and last time ever I wore makeup. But there was a little blue patch down here, so I had to put. My mother put stuff on it. I don't know what you put on that stuff you put on your face, and it pinched out the thing, so nobody saw it at the wedding, you know.
And did you lose the fight?
I actually, your man beat me on points that night, but I won a Munster title. I have a Munster light heavyweight title, and boxing the stadium at Dublin there, and you know, I had a good few fights now, but you know, I wouldn't recommend it now. It was a rough and up sport. Well, I didn't mind it because we were doing it for the laugh, you know, and but. I didn't. That was my last fight after. See, when I was about 14, I got a very bad back injury. Fell off a horse. The horse fell on top of me. So I had to give up football, hurling, boxing, and everything at 23. I just couldn't. My back was so sore, and I had unstable vertebrae in the bottom of my back. So it just worked against me and the old sports a little bit. But I still played a lot of sports, but I couldn't. Just too painful to keep going. So I said, no, I'll just stop playing it, really.
You played hurling to a good level at junior level as well, am I right saying, in football?
No, I have a Munster title in hurling, but it's underage in colleges. But I played. I have senior football and minor football medal, county medals in football, and I played senior football with Waterford for a few games. I think I played minor a few times as well with them. So that was really it. I could give it all up at 23. Just I had to go married, kids coming along. I had to make a few bob, you know.
And Pat, you finally got to meet your hero, Muhammad Ali. Tell us about that night. How yourself and one of your sons, was it Mark, went with you?
No, Stephen came with me that night, and so we stayed in the hotel, and I think it was the Burlington, and So he thought we were meeting somebody else. I told him we were meeting somebody else, you know. And so, and he was there, and he was going, where are we meeting him and all that? And so he was lying there watching television, and I said, come on, put on that tuxedo on you. What am I put that thing on me for? So the next thing he was lying there, he was kind of all uninterested. The next thing I landed the thing down in his chest, and up it was, meeting the Muhammad Ali. She's still up and put on the yoke. We two of us went down. We had a great night. That was unreal. Now we met a lot of people that night. A lot of prominent people in sport. Jimmy McGee was there. He's passed on since, Jimmy. And I said to everybody, you know, I was just talking away to him again. And I said, "Can I ask you a question, Jimmy?" And of course, everybody were asking questions, trying to catch him out, you know. And I said, there was a world title fight, I think there's in 1896, between Jack Sharkey and Bob Fitzsimmons. And he said, yeah. And I said, what was the name of the referee? And he walked off, let know he didn't know it, and he came back and he said, Wyatt Earp. He knew the answer. So I thought Adam caught when he walked off, you know. But anyway, that was great. Now, then when we went out to take a photograph with the greatest, we were there in the line. There's only very few people actually elected to take photographs with him. So because they was costing a few bob. So we were standing there, and who was right behind me, all excited? Moss Keane. And he's since passed away again. He was really excited to be taking pictures with Muhammad Ali, you know, because Moss was a big tough man, you know. Moss is a big guy and great rugby player, but he was all excited, and they're all gone now, you know.
But Pat, you were told that night, anybody who was to get a picture with Muhammad Ali, you were told, stand alongside him, smile, don't touch him. You went against protocol.
Yeah, I put my hand up on his shoulder, and Stephen, I said, put your hand up on his shoulder. No, you're told not. Put your hand up on his shoulder. So he put his hand up. And, you know, so, and then I brought my fist away, and Stephen brought his fist this side, and then the champ brought his fist in the middle, took a nice photograph. And then I shook hands with him, going out, said, thanks, champ. And off we went. And that was it. The boys, I was talking to the bouncers in the way, and they were grand old fellas, and I said, we'd talk away to them, and they won't see anything really, like, you know, so we got away with it, really, you know. So it was fantastic.
Pat, you've been training 40 years. You 14 winners short of 800 winners. You trained a lot of big winners. You still retain all the hunger, enthusiasm, and ambition as well. What's on the bucket list? What's the next target? What's to look forward to in the future for Pat Flynn Racing?
Well, first of all, Kevin, I'm as excited as ever about a winner. When I get a winner, it's unreal. I can't even sleep at night. You're just thinking about it, replaying the race in your mind. But first of all, we'll get to the 800, and then after that, we'll hit the 1,000 after that. But I need to get a few extra horses, which I will. And so we have about 35 riding out at the moment, but I need another 10 or 15 just to get the thing, you know. And staff are hard to get at the moment now, and like we do with two nice riders. We got a nice rider last week there now. We have a few nice lads there, you know, but another rider or two now. If anyone is looking for a job, give me a shout, because we have a very nice atmosphere to work here and some nice horses, and you know, so it's good if someone wants a good rider wants a little job, you know.
And you have some exciting young horses coming along as well, don't you? Some 2-year-olds, some bumper horses. You touched on the bumper horse that's related to Mike Bite and that a few moments ago. Yes, he's just 5 now, and we think he's going to be nice. And look, he's not a big robust horse. He's 16-1, but he's not a robust horse. But he's a nice athletic type. And Pat, you've had it was a frustrating season last year by your own standards as well, but you finished off the year really well. You had a winner the evening at Roman. What Harm has won a couple. Roman has won a couple as well. And What Harm is a typical one that's progressed up along the ranks. Yes, he's a very nice horse, and you know, he's you know, it's great for Brendan. He's been a very good, very, very loyal owner of ours over the years, and so like, you know, he's a nice big horse. Now he's a big 550 kilo horse, like, you know, he's like a big solid horse, and you know, he's able to carry himself, and weight doesn't make that much difference to him, you know. Jake Peter, he ran a cracker behind Scholastic of Joseph O'Brien's there last Friday week. He'll win in the next couple of weeks as well, I'd imagine, if there's a race for him.
Yeah, if we got a nice race to suit him, and look, you know, he's not a big horse. He's only a 440 kilo horse. Like he's over 100 kilo lighter than what harm. You know, it's nice to have them up around 470 or 500. Like, you know, they can carry extra weights, but you'd meet the odd one. I've had one or two. One filly there, Tahadi, years ago. She was only about 370 kilo. And you could only barely keep a saddle on her, but she won 5 or 6 races for us, and she was by Northern Baby. And you know, but I'd like a horse there, 470. I think even now in Hong Kong, when they're buying horses, they like to know their weights, and they like it up in the 470s and that, to have a bit of strength there, you know.
And you put a lot of emphasis on weights there. Just listening to you throughout the interview, you go back to the weights all the time.
Yeah, but no, you learn the horse's weight, and you just know what kind of weight he'd look. Some of them would fluctuate 20 kilo here and there, but usually upwards. You'd like to see him fluctuating, not downwards. But they usually, you know, even they don't even progress much from 2 to 3 even. They're kind of stay their same weight from nearly the end of their 2-year-old career, unless they were big horses, they might grow bigger or something. But you know, it's nice to know the weights, but it's nice to have a horse that's up in the mid 400s there. You know, you can't win much from underneath it, of course, but when they go up in the weights, they don't be as well able to handle it. You know.
And Pat, you're always thinking outside the box. I've been down in your yard as well. It's a beautiful, beautiful setup in a course in a county that's surrounded by horse people. You're always thinking outside the box. You produce your own hay. I think you were the first person in the country to actually get in one of those to barn dry the hay, basically.
We got a Vida hair dryer from out. We got in from Iowa in America. Peter Robinson up there in County Meath, or up around that country, he has one, and he sells hay and that. But he brought it in for us and erected it for us, and we were very, very happy with it. And it works on gas, and it dries 24 big round bales at a time.
And Pat, your gallops it's a wood chip surface, isn't it?
Wood chip, no, we have a circle with sand, and then they have a shoot down and a circle at that sand, and then they go out onto up the hill, then up about 3.5, 4 furlongs up the hill, and that's all wood chip. And
of course, you have your own grass gallops, so it's all self-contained.
Yes, everything. We have the starting stalls, we have everything there, paddocks and fields and everything we need, really, you know.
And of course, Pat, down around your neck of the woods in Carrick-on-Suir, you're surrounded by obviously so many stud farms and so many trainers and so many racing people.
Yeah, well, look, there are very few horses around our area. We have a man over next door, Bernard Cullen, he buys a lot of horses. He bought Princess Zoe there, the horse that Tony Mullins did such an excellent job with. And he's sent 2 horses to us there recently, and they seem to be nice horses from owners that he deals with. And so other than that, there are he's a very good man. He knows speeds of horses and that, and he can spot a good one. And like when Princess Zoe is a fairly good one, you can be sure of that. But so other than that, very few horses around the locality really. Joseph Crowley, our Aidan, our Joseph O'Brien would nearly be the nearest to us.
Yeah, but he's only, 7 or 8 miles away from you as well. Obviously, Paul Shanahan's our stud farm is near you as well. And
but I'm talking about trainers now. Paul's place would be only over the road, say 6 miles.
It's been very enjoyable to catch up with Pat, one of the stalwarts of the game, Kevin, and it's great to catch up and just get back to the start and talk about some of them fantastic horses that we've seen, and look forward to seeing more winners up in Dundalk every Friday night. You always take notice of Pat's runners, and no more so at Dundalk, because if he's bringing them from County Waterford, they're going to be competitive.
Yes, you couldn't get him to move Dundalk down a little bit down towards Kildare, Anthony, could you?
Then we wouldn't be able to stop in a drive-through or Chinese, Pat. We'd have no excuse, you see. So.
And Pat, before we go, Pat, what's your favourite racetrack?
Well, Kevin, I like all the racetracks really. I had an awful down on Tipperary at one stage, but that's because I hadn't the ones to win in it. But I'm at the winning good for races there since, so I like it. But I like Gordon Park and Galway, and I like every racetrack in Ireland. I like it. If I have a horse good enough, I love the racetrack. As simple as that.
what's the highlight? What's your greatest achievement since you started training?
I suppose my biggest excitement was, of course, the day that Designs in Rome came second in the Group 1, because I knew we had a nice horse. And but one of the biggest wins, I suppose, was French Ballerina winning over in Cheltenham. That was really good. And we've had look at the in racing, the great days are great, and the low days are not great. You know what I mean? So it's there's a lot of highs and lows in racing, and you have to enjoy the highs, because there's you'd have bad days as well as good days, and that's it. We try and balance it out a little bit,
Yeah, well, Pat, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think both myself and Fran have enjoyed it, and hopefully everyone watching this tonight will enjoy it as well. You've had a hugely successful career in 40 years so far, and 14 winners short of 800. And by the sounds of things, there's a lot more winners to come from Pat Flynn Racing. Pat, thanks a million. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Fran. Good man.